Hello friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Squid Game Season 2 in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Squid Game Season 2. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you, I'm also going to give you all the information on which platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film storyline, star cast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video till the end, so let's start the video. The second season of the South Korean dystopian survival thriller television series Squid Game, marketed as Squid Game 2, is created by Korean television producer and writer Hwang Dong-hyuk. It was released on Netflix on December 26, 2024. The season stars Lee Jung-jae, Lee Byung-hun, Ha-joon, Im-si-won, Kang Han-oh, Park Gyu-young, Lee Jin-wook, Park Sung-hoon, Yang Dong-gun, Kang A-shim, and Jo Yu-ri. It is set 4 years after Song Gi-hun won the Squid Game, giving up on going to the United States and returning to the games with the intent of stopping them once and for all. He once again dives into the mysterious survival game, starting another life or death game with new participants gathered to win the prize of 45.6 billion. A side plot of the season sees Hwang Jun-ho trying to locate Gi-hun with help from hired mercenaries. Within the first 3 days of release, the second season had 68 million views, exceeding the highest premiere viewership for Netflix held by the first season of Wednesday, at 50.1 million views during its premiere week. According to Netflix, the season ranked at number 1 in 92 countries. The season garnered positive reviews from critics, though it was generally deemed inferior to the first season. The third and final season, which was filmed back-to-back with the second season, will be released in 2025. Episode Song Gi-hun leaves the terminal determined to confront the frontman behind the games. Realizing he is being monitored, he removes a tracking device implanted behind his ear. Hwang Jun-ho survives his fall from the cliff after being rescued by Park, a shrimp boat captain. 2 years later, Gi-hun now lives frugally in a fortified hotel building and has employed Mr. Kim, his former loan shark, and his lackeys to track down the game's recruiter in Seoul, while Jun-ho travels on the sea with Captain Park to find the island of the games, to no avail. Kim and his associate, Choi Woo-seok, eventually locate the recruiter and watch him offer vagrants bread or a lottery ticket. Most choose the ticket, and the recruiter destroys the rejected bread in front of them. After recognizing Gi-hun, Jun-ho investigates him. Kim and Woo-seok decide to approach the recruiter, who beats and abducts both of them and forces them to play a deadly game of rock, paper, scissors, -1 combined with Russian roulette, resulting in Kim's death. Jun-ho locates his operational base. The recruiter confronts Gi-hun there, revealing he was once a soldier in the games who killed his own father, a player, and justifies the game's cruelty by vilifying the participants as scum. He challenges Gi-hun into a round of Russian roulette, resulting in his own death. Gi-hun, Jun-ho, and Woo-seok discover a lead from the recruiter's jacket pointing to a Halloween party. Woo-seok recruits a team of mercenaries, Gi-hun implants a tracker in himself, and the three devise a plan to locate the front man. Meanwhile, Gi-hun continues to look after Sang-woo's mother in Cheol. He works with a broker to reunite Cheol with his mother from the north and places a silent call to his estranged daughter. The team infiltrates the Halloween party, where Gi-hun is escorted by one of the game's pink-clad soldiers into a limousine, with his team in pursuit. He confronts the front man via speaker, demanding an end to the games. When the vehicles following him are shot down, Gi-hun requests to be returned to the games as a player. Kang No-oh, a North Korean defector who seeks to extract her daughter from the north, works as a mascot in a theme park. She forms a bond with Na-yeon, a young toddler with blood cancer whose father is Park Heung-seok, a caricature artist at the park. When sleeping in her car, she is given a business card, similar to the recruiter's, and quits her job the next morning. When walking out of the park, she sees Na-yeon collapse and taken to a hospital with Heung-seok following her. In the evening, she goes to an isolated trailer park along with several other people, entering the game as a soldier. Ji-eun wakes in the game's dormitory with 455 other players. A manager announces a new clause: after each game, the players will vote, and if the majority agrees to leave the games, the accumulated prize money will be divided among them. Jung-ho and his team lose track of the island as Ji-eun's tracker has been removed. Ji-eun recognizes player 390 as his friend Jung-jae and advises him to stay close. The first game is red light, green light. Ji-eun warns the players that elimination will result in death, though many dismiss him. Despite the chaos, Ji-eun's cautions help reduce casualties. Player 230, known as the rapper Thanos, is under the influence of drugs and pushes others to eliminate them. Ji-eun and player 120, named Cho Hyun-ju, attempt to save an eliminated player who was only non-fatally shot, but No-ul shoots the player dead. After the game, Ji-eun urges the players to vote the game's end and reveals he is the sole winner of a previous iteration. Players voting to continue are labeled O, while those voting to leave are labeled X. The front man, posing as player 001, casts the deciding vote to continue. Player 001 feigns an alliance with Ji-eun and fabricates a story, based in truth, about his reason for joining the game. Player 333, named Myung-gi, is attacked by Thanos, and player 124, named Nam-gyu. Player 001 intervenes and stops the altercation easily. Player 222, named Kim Jun-hee and Myung-gi's pregnant ex-girlfriend, reveals herself to him. Meanwhile, a group of soldiers, led by the officer, begin harvesting organs to sell on the black market. The officer orders No-ul to ignore the activities, but she refuses. Jun-ho attempts to enlist police assistance, but is unsuccessful. To Ji-eun's surprise, the second game requires players to form teams of 5 for a 6-leg pentathlon consisting of 5 children's games: Didakji, Biseokchigi, Gongi, Spinning Top, and Jegi, to be completed under a 5-minute time limit. No-ul continues her sabotage of the soldiers' organ trade by shooting living eliminated players dead. After Hyunju's team manages to win through mutual support, many other teams are inspired and succeed. Ji-eun allies with Jung-jae, Jun-hee, and players 001 and 388, Kang Dae-ho. They succeed and exchange names after the game, though player 001 falsely introduces himself as Oh Young-il. No-ul is attacked by 2 soldiers involved in the organ trade, who warn her to stop interfering. During the following vote, player 001 encourages the players to vote against continuing the game, but a larger majority opts to proceed, believing the prize pool remains too small. Ji-eun confides in Jung-jae about his growing uncertainty in rescuing everyone. Meanwhile, Jun-ho and Woo-seok, now with an expanded mercenary team, continue their search for the island. The third game, titled Mingle, requires players to enter designated rooms after forming groups based on an announced number. During Mingle, players struggle to fit their alliances into rooms, causing tension, betrayal, and death of allies. In the final round, Jung-jae witnesses player 001 kill another player to secure a room for themselves. After the game, Ji-eun and player 01 argue over whether to persuade other players to vote to end the games, and ultimately decide against it to avoid a physical fight. During the vote, several players, including player 125, who has been subservient to Thanos and Nam-gyu, change their votes to X. The deciding vote again falls to player 001, resulting in a tie. The players are given a day before re-voting. In the bathroom, Thanos and Nam-gyu pressure player 125, named Park Min-soo, into changing his vote to O, but Myung-gi and other players that voted X intervene to defend him. A fight ensues, with Thanos strangling Myung-gi, who then retaliates by stabbing Thanos in the neck with a metal fork, killing him. Meanwhile, Jun-ho's team locates a possible entrance on an island, only to discover it as a decoy rigged with explosives, killing one of the mercenaries. Captain Park of Jun-ho's team is revealed to be a double agent, having sabotaged their drone, and kills its pilot. Following the bathroom brawl, players realize they can kill others to raise the prize pool and weaken the opposing voters. Ji-eun predicts there will be an attack that night by players who want to continue the game, but convinces a small group of X players to avoid attacking. arguing that the game's creators are the true enemies. During the anticipated massacre, Gi-hun's group stays hidden as the rest of the group receives heavy losses, and they emerge only once soldiers arrive. Gi-hun's group baits the soldiers, killing all but one and taking their firearms. They start a rebellion, forcing the surviving soldier at gunpoint to lead them to the control room. However, more soldiers open fire en route, and the rebellion starts to falter when the group runs out of ammunition. Dae-ho, tasked with retrieving more ammo, suffers a combat stress reaction and is unable to return. Player 01 betrays the group by killing 2 players and faking his death, while other surrendering players are executed. Gi-hun and Jung-jae are captured. In-ho, now masked as the frontman, executes Jung-jae in front of a horrified Gi-hun. Cast and characters. Main article, list of Squid Game characters. Numbers in parentheses denote the character's assigned player number in the Squid Game universe. Production. Development. In late October 2021, Squid Game creator Hwang Dong-hyuk stated he was in discussions with Netflix regarding a second season. He further stated in December 2021 that he was also discussing a third season with Netflix. Hwang wanted to produce another film first, as well as secure a contract with Netflix to release additional films he may create alongside further Squid Game seasons, so as to avoid becoming known only for Squid Game. Hwang confirmed that he had begun conceptualization work on a second season during a press event in November 2021, with plans to bring back Jung-jae to reprise his role of Gi-hun. Netflix stated in response to Hwang's comments that they had not yet officially greenlit a second season, but were in discussions with Hwang towards one. During an earnings call in January 2022, Netflix's Ted Sarandos said when asked about a second season, "Absolutely, the Squid Game universe has just begun." Hwang said in April 2022 that he presently was working on Killing Old People Club, an adaptation of a work called Pape Satan Alep, Chronicles of a Liquid Society, by Umberto Eco, and anticipated that the second season of Squid Game would be completed and broadcast by 2024. Netflix confirmed that the second season was greenlit in June 2022. Writing. Due to the stress of writing and producing the first series of 9 episodes himself, Hwang initially had no immediate plans to write a second season to Squid Game, and did not have well-developed plans for a follow-up story, and said that if he were to write one, he would likely need a staff of writers and directors to help him. However, with the immense popularity of the first season, Hwang later opined about the possibility of a second season in 2021, telling CNN, "There's nothing confirmed at the moment, but so many people are enthusiastic that I'm really contemplating it." Hwang also said in an interview with The Times that a second season may focus more on the story of the frontman as well as incorporating more about the police. "I think the issue with police officers is not just an issue in Korea. I see it on the global news that the police force can be very late in acting on things. There are more victims or a situation gets worse because of them not acting fast enough. This was an issue that I wanted to raise." He added that he also wanted to explore the relationship between the cryptic frontman and his policeman brother, Hwang Jun-ho, as well as the background of the salesman character, portrayed by Gong-yu. Hwang said that a particular inspiration behind the decision to continue the Squid Game story was the Matrix film series, in which Neo chooses the red pill over the blue pill. Gi-hun, similarly, chooses to go after those responsible for the game rather than go back to his life. Speaking about the games that appear in the season, Hwang said, "They are once again simple children's games that a lot of kids in Korea grew up playing. I remember being on set and being reminded of my childhood days." However, he also wanted the games to be more universally recognized this time. In many different countries around the world, there will be some kind of version similar to these games that you probably have played as a child. They're going to be both very easy to understand and play, and very fun. Casting. In April 2022, Hwang confirmed that the characters of Gi-hun and the frontman would return for the second season. During Netflix's Tudum, a global fan event in June 2023, Jung-jae was confirmed to reprise his role alongside Byung-hun, Gong-yu, and Ha-joon. On June 29th, Netflix released more info on the new season's cast, which includes Kang Ha-nul, Park Sung-hoon, Yang Dong-gyun, Park Gyu-young, Lee Jin-wook, Won Ji-en, Jo Yu-ri, Kang A-shim, Choi Sung-hyun, Lee David, and Ro Jae-won. Prior to the season's release, the casting choice of Park Sung-hoon as transgender ex-soldier Hyun-joo was controversial due to some wanting a trans person to authentically portray their experiences. Criticism fell on both the casting of a cisgender person for the role instead of a transgender person, as well as for casting a man in particular as opposed to a woman. Some argued in response to this criticism that South Korea is conservative with regards to LGBTQ rights, and that trying to find a transgender actress willing to put herself in the spotlight was not reasonable. People also opined that having a trans character in a South Korean series at all is an important step in representation. On December 18, 2024, during press day for Squid Game 2, director and creator Hwang Dong-hyuk spoke to a group of journalists about why he wanted to include a trans character this time around. The people who come to join the games in Squid Game are usually marginalized or neglected from society, and not just financially speaking, but people who would belong to marginalized groups. In Season 1, the representative character for that was Ali, who was a foreigner working in Korea, which is one of the most representative minority groups in Korea. Currently today, unfortunately, in the Korean society, the gender minority is a group that is not as accepted widely within society. I wanted to create a character that would represent that. Acceptance of trans people has gotten better recently, but it's still not where it needs to be. In Korea, when you are a gender minority, it is not as widely accepted yet, unfortunately, and you're still seen to be very much out of the norm. And so by creating a character like Hyun-joo, through her choices, her actions, and the way she carries herself in the game, I hope that that could raise awareness of these issues that we face today. Though Hwang wanted to cast a transgender actor for the role, it was difficult to find such an actor in Korea due to the above issues, and believed that Park's prior roles in The Glory and Queen of Tears made him capable of portraying the role. Jo Yu-ri, who portrayed Kim Jun-hee, is best known as a former member of the South Korean Japanese girl group IZ*ONE. She first gained prominence after participating in Minet's reality competition series Produce 48 in 2018, where she finished in third place and debuted with IZ*ONE on October 29, 2018. Following IZ*ONE's disbandment in April 2021, Jo embarked on a successful solo career, releasing her debut single album Glassy in October 2021, which garnered her several nominations for Rookie of the Year at major music awards. On December 4th, 2024, T.O.P. was revealed as a cast member through the official Netflix YouTube account in the form of a Meet the Cast video. He would play the role of a former rapper, Thanos, fallen from grace due to a crypto scam. The character was created before casting, T.O.P. receiving the role after Hwang found his serious approach. Hwang explained that he wanted to cast someone who stopped working due to drugs, T.O.P. retiring from the K-pop industry and leaving Big Bang over a marijuana conviction, 49. The casting of T.O.P. received controversy in South Korea. The actor's face blurred on the Korean show Live This Morning when airing a segment about the show. The casting led to some viewers to believe that Lee Jung-jae, who portrayed Song Gi-hun and was close to T.O.P., had gotten him the role, a claim that Lee denied. Netflix and Hwang received criticism for this casting for possibly setting a bad precedent. T.O.P. was absent for a time from promotional events with the cast. Responding to speculation that he was removed from promotional events over the controversy, Hwang said that they planned to not have him featured from the beginning, wanting T.O.P. to be able to talk about his involvement at his own pace. He felt that he had a lot of guts for agreeing to do the performance considering his history with drugs, 54, and was surprised that he had still not been forgiven. He also believed that the reaction to his casting would not be reflected outside of Korea due to different legality and opinions on marijuana use in some countries. He also believed that his character may prove popular with younger viewers in Korea. In 2000, Song Young-chang, who played the role of Im Jong-dae in the season, was arrested on charges dealing with child exploitation after being accused of having sexual relations in his car with a 16-year-old on 2 different occasions near a park in Goyang and paying the minor for services. The incident further blew up because the teenager recognized him from his previous projects and led to Jung-jae facing legal proceedings. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison and 2 years of probation for violating the Juvenile Protection Act. However, since he had no prior record and showed remorse during his 36-day custody period, his sentence was later suspended. Jung-jae was permanently banned from coming on the major TV networks in South Korea, including KBS, EBS, and MBC, and worked in musical theater until his eventual comeback in films and series. Jung-jae's prior legal issues received renewed attention after the season's release. Earlier in 2024, Oh Young-soo was found guilty of sexually assaulting a woman in 2017 and was sentenced to an 8-month suspended prison term, as well as being ordered to attend 40 hours of classes on sexual violence. He was accused of various cases of sexual misconduct in which he had inappropriately hugged, made lewd comments towards, laid in the same bed with, and kissed the victim across multiple incidents. Although he was charged in 2017, he was not indicted until 2022. His conviction led to there being no flashback scenes featuring his character in the second season. Filming. Principal photography for the second season was scheduled to start in July 2023 and was expected to last for at least 10 months. On July 10th, staff members of the production faced a controversy involving allegations of mistreatment towards citizens during filming at Incheon Airport, Seoul. The production company issued an official apology on the matter. Filming was reportedly underway in August 2023. It took place at a film studio in Daejeon. Filming wrapped in July 2024 and was filmed back-to-back, along with the third upcoming season. Music composer Jung-jae returned to score the second season, with the soundtrack album being released on December 27, 2024, through Netflix Music. Jung confirmed his involvement in 2023, telling the BBC the second season would retain some elements from the score to the first season, but have a more bizarre and unique sound. The first episode features the aria Nessun Dorma from Giacomo Puccini's Turandot, sung by Paul Potts, and Time to Say Goodbye by Sarah Brightman and Andrea Bocelli. The third episode features a cover of Fly Me to the Moon performed by Ji-eun, a song which was also featured in the first season. Marketing. During Netflix Event Week in September 2024, a poster and a teaser for the season were released. Between October and December, Netflix promoted the series in fan conventions around the world, in which invited fans took part in simulated games from the series. The events took place in Lucca, Italy, Paris, France, Amsterdam, the Netherlands, Seoul, South Korea, Los Angeles, United States, Sydney, Australia, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Warsaw, Poland, London, United Kingdom, and Jakarta, Indonesia. Famous streamer Ibai Llanos organized his own version of Squid Game with KFC in Madrid, Spain. Filipino journalist MJ Marfori attended the 3-day event for the season and also interviewed Lee Jung-jae. McDonald's Australia ran a limited-time Squid Game meal promotion, which came bundled with a dalgona cookie for customers to extract a shape from, mirroring the first season war. One form of the cookie included the shape of the company's signature golden arches where, if extracted successfully, customers could scan to enter a competition to win $100,000 alongside replicas of contestants' tracksuits from the series. Release. The season was released on December 26, 2024 on Netflix. Reception. The second season garnered positive reviews from critics, though it was generally deemed inferior to the first season. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 84% of 82 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 7.10. The website's consensus reads, "While Squid Game's return can't help but lose the element of surprise, some absolutely diabolical challenges and a naughty moral outlook keep this sophomore season thrilling." On Metacritic, the second season has a weighted average score of 62 out of 100 based on 36 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Laura Martin from the BBC gave the season 4 stars out of 5 and said it rivaled the production quality of the first season. Annabelle Nugent from The Independent also gave the season 4 stars out of 5 and said while it was not as shocking as the first season, it was still captivating in its violence. Rebecca Nicholson from The Guardian gave the season a less positive review due to issues she found with its plot development and pacing and rated it 3 stars out of 5. Kelly Lawler from USA Today gave the season 2 stars out of 4, calling the plot outlandish and the end unsatisfying. IGN writer Alex Zalban drew comparisons between Ji-eun and the people behind Squid Game, arguing that the way he commands the people he hires to find the recruiter mirrors the controlling nature of the games. He also believed that Ji-eun's seeming heroism is self-centered, that it is done for redemption more than for the good of others. Ji-eun's development in Season 2 was well received by Gizmodo writers Germaine Lucier and Cheryl Eddy, praising actor Lee Jung-jae for managing to capture his shift into a character with darker intensity who is struggling with survivor's guilt. The Hollywood Reporter writer Daniel Feinberg felt that compared to his performance in Season 1, where Lee acted with live-wire dexterity and being big in both his portrayal of Ji-eun's comedy and trauma, his one-note haunted aspect in Season 2, while well performed, the character is less interesting in Season 2. Of all the cast members of the second season, Park Sung-hoon's portrayal of the transgender ex-soldier Hyun-joo won significant praise from many critics. Many viewers regarded Park's character as one of the most compelling characters in the second season due to the character development and background of Hyun-joo and Park's dedication and depth in portraying Hyun-joo. Gong-yoo's brief reprise of the salesman recruiter character also received positive reviews from fans on social media. After the season's release, T.O.P.'s acting as the rapper Thanos was criticized, particularly that his vocal and facial performance was out of place, with the quality of his rap having mixed reception. Outside of South Korea, the negative reaction to his casting was criticized by some people who found it excessive and unreasonable. Hwang argued against the claim that cartoonish characters were not limited to only Season 1, comparing him to Jang Deok-soo and Han Min-yeo from Season 1, who he said both received similar commentary. Reception to Thanos and his performance was less negative than from South Korean viewers, according to Korea Times. A survey held by Netflix about the favorite new character was conducted, with Thanos winning 50% of the vote out of 700,000 people. The season was boycotted in Vietnam due to a scene in the 5th episode in which Jung-jae said that Dae-ho's father was a good person when he fought in the Vietnam War. This was interpreted by Vietnamese audiences as praising South Korean war crimes in Vietnam, and they demanded authorities take necessary actions regarding this statement. Viewership. Within the first 3 days of release, the second season had 68 million views, exceeding the highest premiere viewership for Netflix held by the first season of Wednesday at 50.1 million views during its premiere week. According to Netflix, the season ranked at number 1 in 92 countries. 2021 Squid Game became one of the biggest hits of the streaming TV era, unexpectedly launching its way to the title of Netflix's most-watched show ever, on its way to Emmys for acting, Lee Jung-jae, and direction, Hwang Dong-hyuk. Despite a bit of a cliffhanger in its final episode, the first season of Squid Game could have easily stood alone, but Netflix backed up trucks of money to writer-director Hwang, and he figured out how to expand this story for 2 more seasons. Although the way the 7-episode second chapter plays out, it's clear that chapters 2 and 3, which were shot simultaneously, are really one story. Despite the high body count by the end of these 7 hours of inventive television, Squid Game 2 does feel like setup for a showdown in the 3rd and final season. Even if it does end on a less satisfactory note than the landscape-shifting first outing, Squid Game is likely to be another huge hit for Netflix, enough to carry them into an ambitious 2025. The new players are thrust into a version of the game that blissfully doesn't just repeat the original. First, the involvement of a former winner totally changes the dynamic, making him an instant leader by virtue of knowing more about what comes next. More impactful is a change to the structure of the game, wherein the players vote after each round whether or not they want to stay or play another game. Continuing means more money for the survivors, but possible death. While the writers arguably spend a bit too long in the actual scenes of voting and campaigning to stay or go, it does insert a new theme. The greed and desperation of one half of the population, those willing to put everyone's life on the line for more money, that basically keeps the other half prisoner. It also creates more divisions in the players by dividing them into, of course, given the childhood game aesthetic, X's and O's. Would you try as hard to help someone who you know will vote to leave if you want to stay, and vice versa? Squid Game is undeniably well made in terms of craft, sharply directed in all 7 episodes by the same creator, giving it a visual continuity that helps make it so bingeable. The art direction this year is consistently engaging, including some new games that once again turn childhood joys into adult nightmares. Some of it echoes last season thematically and visually, but when it's good, which is often, it's very good. The writing in the back half of the season struggles when it has to check in with characters outside of the Squid Game compound, but it hums in-game, introducing new ideas and bouncing these new personalities off each other. That latter part sidelines Ji-eun a bit, but that feels like a choice to set him up as the true center of the final season, and it makes it feel like even more of an ensemble piece than Season 1. It also helps to have a larger role for Byung-hun, a phenomenal performer who gets to toy with Ji-eun this year in ways I didn't see coming. Squid Game is a tough act to repeat. I don't expect the sequel to have the same cultural impact as the first, which led to awards, spin-offs, and copycats. And the fact it doesn't stand alone as much as Year 1 will likely add to a sense of disappointment. However, it almost feels like we should wait to judge Squid Game 2 until we see where these new characters and thematic developments lead us in Squid Game 3. After all, you can't know who's won a game until it's over. One of Hollywood's many bad habits is the bloat caused by splitting a story in half in a bid to double the profits. Cough, cough, Dune and Wicked. Squid Game was always a perfect one-series story. Gambling addict Song Gi-hun Lee Jung-jae became player 456, a desperate man who attempts to pay off his debts by taking part in a twisted underground fight-to-the-death competition. He beats the odds by surviving every one of its potentially fatal playground games. When it first appeared, it was horrifying. It was thrilling, and its satirical edge, which examined capitalism and class in South Korea, was clever and acidic. The world took to it in vast numbers. That it became one of Netflix's most successful and therefore most profitable series of all time placed it in a creative bind. Inevitably, it was renewed for a second and then third series, but even before that, its satirical edge was stress-tested by Squid Game: The Challenge, a real game show spin-off. That was far more entertaining than it had any right to be, but its win-big mentality did rather undermine the point of the original, which took aim at the inherent unfairness of an exploitative economic system. But that was a diversion, and its many millions of viewers will be keen to see if Squid Game can recapture its magic, even with a return that seems unnecessary, at least in narrative terms. For the first 3 of these 7 new episodes, it struggles to find its purpose. It is 3 years after Gi-hun walked away with the money, and he is hell-bent on seeking revenge on the super-rich puppet masters who engineered its deadly spectacle. He is chasing shadows, using some of his vast cash reserves, or blood money, to fund a mercenary army. He joins forces with the former detective Hwang who is still trying to find his brother, to look for the salesman, the man in the suit who asks strangers to play dakji with him before recruiting them as players. Months pass, and the dead ends mount. The early episodes feel like delaying tactics, and considering that this is Squid Game, it is all rather ordinary. There are chase scenes, car crashes, and gunfights. The satirical element has been replaced by a quest for vengeance. It is entertaining enough, but it does lead to an uncomfortably bloodthirsty sensation of willing everyone to get back to the sports day with a body count. Given that the last episode feels very much like the halfway point in the story, which will continue with a final series next year, this dragging of heels is gratuitous. It gets better. When Ji-eun finally becomes player 456 again, and this is revealed in the trailer, which seems to have an understanding of the need for the games and the structure provided by them, it is a welcome kick up the backside. Here, it begins to embrace the familiar and make enough changes to freshen everything up. It starts to go deeper into the lives of the masked soldiers who enforce the rules. There are new players, and so a whole new cast to either root for or despise. The idea of expensive health care and the conflation of wealth and health is foregrounded, which is timely. It introduces a mother and her son as both Squid Game The Challenge and the last series of The Traitors know. This dynamic is dramatic gold. In other cases, it makes the villains cartoonishly awful. A rapper named Thanos is one of the most irritating characters to appear on TV in recent times. One of the preoccupations of Squid Game is human nature. As a species, are we fundamentally decent and magnanimous, or are we craven, greedy, and selfish? The salesman reminds us of the theme early on, when he takes 2 bags of shopping to a park mostly populated by the homeless and others down on their luck. He offers them a choice, bread or a scratch card, the certainty of a meal or the possibility of cash. Most take the risk, not knowing the outcome. Ji-eun already knows the outcome of the games, or at least he thinks he does. But whether he can persuade the others what it actually means to play when the odds are stacked against you is another story. For all of its unevenness, particularly as it is warming up to the proper action, there is one big twist that really works, though whether it is distinct enough from what happens in the first series is unclear. And when you think you know where it is going, it turns away from its trajectory, upping the ante and finding its feet. What a shame it takes so long to get there, though. Series 3 has some cleaning up to do. I'll openly admit that when I first watched Squid Game 3 years ago, I wasn't as enchanted by the show as everyone else. In fact, I found it to be completely over the top in premise and execution. The story felt heavy-handed to me, the moral being so overt I felt like I was being bashed over the head by it for each of the season's 9 episodes. One of my biggest disappointments was that just when the story started getting good, the show ended. So when season 2 and 3 were announced, I wanted to know if the series would diverge from its original format and dive deeper into the exploration of these characters and social concepts. Would the story explore more nuances and go beyond the surface? In some ways, it does. Season 2 switches up the formula for Squid Game to offer a fresh take on the concept. Still, despite a promising start, the show continues to rely too heavily on the same archetypes that made the first season feel so predictable. Squid Game Season 2 picks up right where Season 1 left off, with Song Gi-hun, Lee Jung-jae, about to get on a plane to finally go see his daughter in the U.S. after winning the games, before calling the number on one of the Squid Game cards and getting pulled right back into it. After the title card and seeing Gi-hun pick out the tracker embedded behind his ear, we jump forward 2 years. Police officer Hwang Ha-joon is now a traffic cop, having willingly stepped down from his position as a detective after being found by a fisherman nearly dead in the water near one of the islands. Meanwhile, Gi-hun has dedicated his life to hunting down the people behind the games. He uses his riches to buy a rundown motel and works with the loan shark, whom he paid back to find the recruiter of the games so he can get a new spot in another round. With just 7 episodes to the season, the first 2 focus primarily on Gi-hun's hunt, splitting off from the confines of the games, and the show is better for it. This lays the groundwork for us to understand how far Gi-hun has come since the end of Season 1. He's not just one man in a room with a red string. He's got a whole operation, using the rest of his money to get justice, and still haunted by the deaths of the 454 other contestants. These initial episodes also successfully set up new characters who exist outside the games, including other participants and at least one person who wears the mask of a guard. While you might expect most guards to be sociopathic young men behind their anonymous masks, individuals who are all too eager to dehumanize and slaughter the players like they're in a video game, not all of them are like that. The vast majority seem to fit the sadistic mustache-twirling bill, but Season 2 reveals that isn't always the case. It's an attempt at looking at the games beyond the confines of the arena, and while it's not enough, it's certainly appreciated. The years have turned Ji-eun into a shell of his former self. Where once he was bratty, impulsive, and optimistic, he's solemn and dogged in his attempt to hunt down those responsible for the games. Only 2 years have passed, but the man's aged a decade. He has seemingly cut off complete contact with his daughter and is now single-minded in his goal. Lee Jung-jae really proves his mettle this season, especially when you compare his performance in the series premiere to where he ends up at the end of Season 2. He's a delight as a protagonist, having grown from his experiences. At one point, another character remarks that he's become more eloquent over the years, and that's the best way to describe him. While the role of the straight man was relegated to Cho Sang-woo, Kae-soo, Gi-hun's old classmate in Season 1, Gi-hun is now the character in that position, and the role never looked so good on him. One of the biggest plot twists in Season 1 involved an old man entering the game as the very first player 001, later revealed to be the cynical creator of the games, Oh Il-nam, Oh Young-soo, who simply wanted to play the game rather than wait to die. While it's an interesting concept, it's executed poorly. Season 2 fixes this by revealing right at the beginning that the new 001 is not an average player, as Lee Byung-hun's Hwang In-ho, a.k.a. the front man, steps into the role of the game's turncoat. While Oh Il-nam's reveal was lackluster, the front man's existence as a wolf in sheep's clothing in the games makes for a better show. Thanks to a new format, where everyone gets to vote after each game on whether they want to leave or not, he acts as a wild card. Thanks to Lee Byung-hun's performance, the lines for the front man are blurred. Sometimes it feels like we're looking at Hwang In-ho, a man who lost his terminally ill wife and a former winner of the games, who gets caught up in his camaraderie with Gi-hun and becomes a genuine participant. But then, sometimes, it feels like we're with the front man as he manipulates the other participants, putting a foot on the scale and making sure the games continue how he wants them to. While Cho Sang-woo may have been an obvious villain in Season 1, the front man actually adds layers of complexity. It makes all of his scenes compelling, especially when he's opposite Gi-hun. It's safe to say that these actors' performances carry the season and make up for some of the weaker characters. The opening episode of Season 2 is mesmerizing, save for one thing. We see more of Gong-yu's recruiter beyond his subway-slapping game of dakji, but it's only more of the same mustache-twirling evil, and a disappointing indicator of the show's worst trait. The fact that there are a lot of characters who simply exist as archetypes or extremes of a trope without any nuance or depth. This normally comes in the form of the show's antagonists. Outside of Frontman, none of the villains have any version of a complex backbone. After being labeled as a bad character, there's little to redeem or even indicate that there's something beyond what can be glimpsed on the surface. A good example is the boisterous former rapper Thanos, played by Choi Sung-hyun, better known by his stage name TLP, and one of the main members of the mega-hit group Big Bang. He's lost all of his hard-earned money thanks to a crypto scam run by one of the other participants, who he torments relentlessly throughout the game, while also popping smuggled pills to up his chaotic unpredictability. Instead of the show exploring Thanos' character, he comes off as a caricature. Whether delivering bizarre rhyming raps at inopportune times, or literally skipping and dancing his way through the deadly games, it's hard to regard him as anything more than a cartoon. But Thanos isn't the only instance of this. Any character labeled as good is accompanied by a sob story of how they lost money due to an injustice or some kind of scam, while anyone labeled as evil will be a greedy, money-hungry person who won't stop gambling until they get it all. In fact, even the formula for these characters is copied over from Season 1. Once again, there's a North Korean character trying to get their family out of the North and willing to do anything for that. There's an evil leader of the bad group, and he's got his cronies who terrorize the other players. There's a loud and obnoxious female character who is clearly up to no good. There's a soft-spoken but cold female character who has a soft heart beneath her tough shell. And there's the very obvious outsider who physically stands out from the group. For every character lost in Season 1, there's a Season 2 counterpart to fill in the blank. On some level, this might be intentional, demonstrating that the same types of people are chosen for these games, but it illustrates the issues the show has with characterization. Season 2 is a bit better than Season 1 in revealing more about the other good players and their past, but it's only thanks to Gi-hun's presence that there is a shakeup in the overall dynamics. This also has the consequence of the season's additional characters essentially feeling like set dressing rather than fully formed beings. The downside of this sophomore season is that once we get to the actual arena, the games are predictable. You can see the plot twists coming a mile away even when a new game is introduced. And if you don't, the show flashes lights in your face to make sure you're prepared for the incoming twist. Squid Game has always had the problem of showing first and telling second, making sure to hit the viewer over the head with an explanation so that they don't miss what's happening. At one point in the games, the players are formed into teams, and their legs are tied together to play a relay race-style game. After showing their bound legs, that turning around as a group is more difficult, and that it's easier to simply walk backwards. The scene cuts to one of the characters stating that exact thing to make sure we haven't missed it. This doesn't just happen once, it happens every time. It often feels like the show is afraid its audience might not understand what is going on, so everything has to be spelled out. Every dramatic scene feels emotionally manipulative. Slow motion moments feel almost sluggish in the way they force the viewer to analyze every little detail on screen before zooming in on those details. Every vote replays the same dynamics as the previous ones in a tedious fashion, wasting time on the same scenes of people hesitating between whether to stay or go. By the time the season reaches its ending, it feels like a lot of time has been wasted on repetition, especially since the final episode picks up and depicts something we haven't seen before. More time could have been spent here rather than anywhere else. In some ways, it's hard for the show not to replay its greatest hits. From not-so-shocking betrayals to bloody massacres, Squid Game doubles down on the same points to try and recapture lightning in a bottle. Even though there's a full story outside the arena, with Hwang trying to track down the island where Gi-hun has been taken to, it gets kicked to the side in favor of the games. Coincidentally, his storyline was also the most interesting part of Season 1. Additionally, the show doesn't seize the opportunity for In-ho to talk about his brother with Gi-hun, leaning away from the interesting dynamic of the three men who are unknowingly connected in one way or another. The show works best when it builds off of what it's already done, rather than recycling the same formula. Ultimately, Squid Game hasn't shaken off the weakest aspects of Season 1. It's still dealing in blacks and whites, though the frontman's involvement helps to soften that. The show still feels like it's constantly wagging its finger about morality and money in the arena, rather than actually building on the most interesting plots. Squid Game can't shake the desire to reiterate the same exhausting lessons about greed and human nature, and that does more to weigh down the narrative than lift it up. The second season of this sadistic playground is a trap of its own, not of death, but of tedium. 7 long hours later, we've emerged with all the ammunition you'll need to survive any office chat about it without wasting your time in front of the screen. This sequel, available since December 26th, lands firmly on the list of unwanted holiday gifts alongside fruitcakes and re-gifted Yankee candles. 3 endless years of anticipation have led us back to a story that nobody remembers in detail. Sure, there's the giant killer doll, the manipulative old man, and a parade of South Korean cannon fodder. But director Hwang Dong-hyuk couldn't care less. Instead of easing us back in, he flings us into the chaos as if we've memorized every frame of the original. A 2-minute previously on recap does the bare minimum. the narrative equivalent of a high school book report on Moby Dick that ends with, "Anyway, it's about a whale." The first 2 episodes are a blur of noise and recycled faces, returning with the swagger of Marvel superheroes, but none of the charm. As the audience, you're left squinting at the screen asking, who are these people again? Why are they here? And do I care? By the time we've hit the inevitable Russian roulette sequence, set, bizarrely, to an Andrea Bocelli track, because why not, most of the cast has been wiped out. Honestly, skip to episode 3, where the games actually start, and the aesthetic shifts into what can only be described as Instagram meets MC Escher, all glossy pastels and labyrinthine dread. The star Song Ji-eun is the sole survivor of the first round. And wow, they really picked the wrong guy to bring back. Song Ji-eun is back, not as a character, but as a human Hallmark card, convinced he can save the contestants through the power of good vibes. His sanctimonious speeches about humanity's failings would fit better in a soapbox monologue at the Oscars than a high-stakes death match. You can almost hear him say, "World peace is my dream," while his fellow contestants, understandably, roll their eyes and get back to not dying. For someone who survived the first game, Ji-eun returns with a plan so idiotic it verges on performance art. He recruits a team of equally hopeless do-gooders. Think The Breakfast Club, but if everyone were failing the class. And together, they embark on their mission to infiltrate the deadly game in a rowboat. This is less Ocean's 11 and more Gilligan's Island with extra body bags. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go well. If there's any solace, it's that the new contestants are so insufferable. Watching them lose becomes the real game. Forget the desperate, sympathetic losers of Season 1. This time it's a parade of influencers, crypto scammers, and social media grifters. One guy is essentially a walking NFT, all hype and no substance. Watching these clowns try to outwit the pink-suited guards is less about tension and more about rooting for natural selection. The character lineup feels algorithmically generated. There's the aspiring Instagram model, the TikTok star who dances his way into oblivion, and the relatable mother-son duo, though they're less Gilmore Girls and more Everyone Loves Raymond if the jokes were replaced with screaming matches. The only memorable addition is a contestant whose motivation is to win the money for gender-affirming surgery, a genuinely poignant storyline that feels utterly out of place in this mess. The show has the nerve to recycle plot twists from the first season. Remember that shocking betrayal that had everyone gasping in 2021? They bring it back, beat for beat, like a cover band playing Hotel California for the 1,000th time. And of course, Ji-eun, in his infinite wisdom, doesn't see it coming, too busy proselytizing to notice the knife aimed squarely at his back. The worst offense is how proudly Squid Game 2 announces itself as a bridge to a 3rd season. It doesn't bother with a satisfying conclusion, instead leaving viewers dangling on a limp cliffhanger. And the final twist? It centers on a character so inconsequential you'll wonder if the writers lost a bet. This isn't storytelling, it's corporate strategy. Netflix keeping its brand alive at the expense of everyone's patience. If the first Squid Game was a biting critique of capitalism, this season is the late-stage capitalist version of itself. Bloated, empty, and dripping with irony. It wants to say something profound about human greed, but by the 3rd episode, it's clear the only thing it has to offer is more empty spectacle. Netflix has packaged this as prestige TV, but it's really just the Hunger Games with loftier ambitions and none of the bite. Midway through the new season of Squid Game, the protagonist, Ji-eun, Lee Jung-jae, talks to a fellow contestant in the murderous big money competition he has found his way back into. Ji-eun, who claimed the jackpot last season at the expense of hundreds of dead comrades, wants the players to exercise their right to vote to end the game. His friend argues that if they survive just one more round, they could all walk away with a bigger prize. "Last time I was here," Ji-eun answers, "someone said the exact same thing." You might think the same thing to yourself if you watch the 7-episode return of Squid Game, now streaming on Netflix. You will hear things you essentially heard in Season 1. You will see things you saw in Season 1. And should you happen to hear or see something new, it will likely come from a character who is very much like someone you watched die or kill someone the first time around. One suspects this is by design. This Squid Game is a things-you've-seen-before delivery device. The 2021 premiere of this dystopian South Korean thriller was an international sensation, less for the novelty of its themes, capitalism exploits the desperate, or structure, see The Hunger Games and much reality TV, than for its spattery panache and visual inventions. The killer doll, the jumpsuits, the piggy bank. Those are what the people paid to see, and Squid Game 2 dutifully delivers them again. Season 1 introduced Ji-eun as a ne'er-do-well debtor who accepts an invitation to play a series of children's games at a remote location for a life-changing pot of money, all for a viewing audience of debauched billionaire VIPs. The losers die, usually spurting great arterial gouts, and a stack of bills representing their worth plops into the insatiable belly of the prize oinker. Of course, he must return to the game in order to destroy it. But Squid Game takes its time getting him there. It takes its time with everything, stopping and starting as if in its own game of red light, green light. We meet a new set of contestants, many of them variations on Season 1's casualties, including an arrogant rapper, an elderly mother and her bumbling son, an influencer who pumped a failed cryptocurrency. A repeated theme is that some of the game's prey were themselves predators. The continuing storyline in which a policeman, Ha-joon, hunts for the game's organizers, this time by sea, drags the narrative momentum like an anchor scraping the ocean floor. The season does try to expand its scope by delving into the staff running the game, particularly the menacing frontman Byung-hun, the game's manager and Ji-eun's ultimate quarry. Another subplot involving a North Korean defector, Park Yu-young, starts intriguingly but never really develops. What Squid Game, directed by Hwang Dong-hyuk, still has going for it is its visual imagination. Its themes of class struggle, shared with Korean films like Parasite and Snowpiercer, are rendered with flair, and not just in the pastel abattoir of the game sets. A memorable set of Season 2 scenes takes place in a children's theme park, where we go backstage with the costume mascots, sweltering inside their fuzzy exoskeletons. As with the deadly playground games of the competition, the delight of childhood here is warped by the cruel economics of the adult world, where one person's delight is another's misery. But there's a lot more misery than delight as the season returns us to the games, repeating the bloody spectacle with new twists, but the same crabs in a barrel personal dynamics. This season is titled Squid Game 2, as if it were a movie sequel, which raises a question about just what this thing is meant to be. Is it a second season of a serial which advances a larger storyline? Is it the follow-up to a blockbuster offering a standalone variation on the thrills of the original? Squid Game 2 is neither, really. It continues a story, but does little over its 7 hours to expand it. And maybe that's fine for the audience. But if the series is just a vehicle for more of the same high-design carnage, are we collectively just a bargain basement version of the VIPs? Somewhere around the umpteenth stabbing and machine gun execution, I had to wonder if this was supposed to be fun, and at what point its social critique just becomes fatalism. I also wondered other things, like how the inmates' sneakers remain so blindingly white with the gallons of blood spilled on the floors. It is possible, of course, to tell a story like this without simply repeating the pattern each season. In the thematically similar series of Hunger Games books and films, the story becomes less about the games with each installment and more about the dystopian, larger society whose existence sustains and depends on the cruel spectacle. This season of Squid Game hints at larger-scale ambitions, but does little to pursue them. As one antagonist tells Ji-eun, the game will not end unless the world changes. The line is a taunt and a dismissal, but you could also read it as a clue. If the blood sport is the natural culmination of an economic death match that everyone everywhere competes in, then the solution to this larger problem must lie outside the game. It's just not clear that Squid Game is ready to leave the arena. At least not until after one more round, one more score. Thanos, Choi-san, and many more. Most controversially, a cisgender man named Park Sun-eun was hired to play a transgender woman named Yeonju, leading to some opining that a trans performer should have been cast an undeniably preferable option, but more difficult in Korea than other parts of the world for. The record Park is good in a role that seems destined to be controversial based on cast alone. The new players are thrust into a version of the game that blissfully doesn't just repeat the original. First, the involvement of a former winner totally changes the dynamic, making him an instant leader by virtue of knowing more about what comes now. Next, more impactful, is a change to the structure of the game, wherein the players vote after each round whether or not they want to stay or play another game. Continuing means more money for the survivors, but possible death. While the writers arguably spend a bit too long in the actual scenes of voting and campaigning to stay or go, it does insert a new theme, the greed and desperation of one half of the population, those willing to put everyone's life on the line for more money that basically keeps the other half prisoner. It also creates more divisions in the players by dividing them into, of course, given the childhood game aesthetic, X's and O's, would you try? As hard to help someone who you know will vote to leave if you want to stay, and vice versa. Squid Game is undeniably well made in terms of craft, sharply directed in all 7 episodes by the same creator, giving it a visual continuity that helps make it so bingeable. The art direction this year is consistently engaging, including some new games that once again turn childhood joys into adult nightmares. Some of it echoes last season thematically and visually, but when it's good, which is often, it's very good. The writing in the back half of the season struggles when it has to check in with characters outside of the Squid Game compound, but it hums in-game, introducing new ideas and bouncing these new personalities off each other. That latter part sidelines Jun a bit, but that feels like a choice to set him up as the true center of the final season, and it makes it feel like even more of an ensemble piece. Then Season 1, it also helps to have a larger role for Lee Wai-hun, a phenomenal performer who gets to toy with Ji-eun. This year in ways I didn't see coming. Squid Game is a tough act to repeat, i.e. that don't expect the sequel to have the same cultural impact as the first, which led to award spin-offs and copycats, and the fact it doesn't stand alone as much as year 1 will likely add to a sense of disappointment. However, it almost feels like we should wait to judge Squid Game 2 until we see where these new characters and thematic developments lead us in Squid Game 3. After all, you can't know who's won a game until it's over. The second season of the South Korean dystopian survival thriller television series Squid Game, marketed as Squid Game 2, is created by Korean television producer and writer Hang Dong-hyuk. It was released on Netflix on December 26, 2024. The season stars Lee Jung-jae, Lee Bang-un, Chan Kongo, W. Han, Park Ong-lin, Wook Park, Sunun, Yang Dong-gun, Kong Isim, and Jo Yuri. It is set 4 years after Song Jae-hun won the Squid Game, giving up on going to the United States and returning to the games with the intent of stopping them once and for all. He once again dives into the mysterious survival game, starting another life or death game with new participants gathered to win the prize of 45.6 billion Korean. Wants a side plot of the season sees Hang Junyo trying to locate Hun with help from hired mercenaries within the first 3 days of viewer release. The second season had 68 million views, exceeding the highest premiere viewership for Netflix, held by the first season of Wednesday, at 50.1 million views during its premiere week. According to Netflix, the season ranked at number 1 in 92 countries. The season garnered positive reviews from critics, though it was generally deemed inferior to the first season. The third and final season, which was filmed back-to-back with the second season, will be released in 2025. Development in late October 2021. Squid Game creator Hang Dong-hyuk stated he was in discussion with Netflix regarding a second season. He further stated in December 2021 that he was also discussing a third season with Netflix. Hwang wanted to produce another film first, as well as secure a contract with Netflix to release additional films he may create alongside further Squid Game seasons, so as to avoid becoming known only for Squid Game. Hwang confirmed that He had begun conceptualization work on a second season during a press event in November 2021, with plans to bring back Jung-jae to reprise his role of June. Netflix stated in response to Hwang's comments that they had not yet officially greenlit a second season, but were in discussions with Hwang towards one. During an earnings call in January 2022, Netflix's Ted Sarandos said, when asked about a second season, "Absolutely, the Squid Game universe has just begun." Hwang said in April 2022 that he presently was working on Killing Old People Club, an adaptation of a work called Pop Satan Alla Chronicles of a Liquid Society by Umberto Eco, and anticipated that confirmed that the second season was greenlit in June 2022, writing due to the stress of writing and producing the first series of 9 episodes himself. Hwang initially had no immediate plans to write a second season to Squid Game and did not have well-developed plans for a follow-up story, and said that if he were to write one, he would likely need a staff of writers and directors to help him. However, with the immense popularity of the first season, Hwang later opined about the possibility of a second season in 2021, telling CNN, "There's nothing confirmed at the moment, but so many people are enthusiastic that I'm really contemplating it." Hwang also said in an interview with The Times that a second season may focus more on the story of the front man, as well as incorporating more about the police. "I think the issue with police officers is not just an issue in Korea. I see it on the global news that the police force can be very late in acting on things. There are more victims, or a situation gets worse because of them not acting fast enough. This was an issue that I wanted to raise." He added that he also wanted to explore the relationship between the cryptic frontman and his policeman brother, Han Jun-ho, as well as the background of the salesman character portrayed by Gangu Hwang. Said that a particular inspiration behind the decision to continue the Squid Game story was the Matrix film series, in which Neo chooses the red pill over the blue pill. Ji-eun similarly chooses to go after those responsible for the game rather than go back to his life. Speaking about the games that appear in the season, Hwang said they are, once again, simple children's games that a lot of kids in Korea grew up playing. "I remember being on set and being reminded of my childhood days." However, he also wanted the games to be more universally recognized this time. In many different countries around the world, there will be some kind of version similar to these games that you probably have played as a child. They're going to be both very easy to understand and play and very fun. Casting director Hwang requested that actors Gong-yoo Left and Lee-yeon Right, with whom he had previously worked, appear as the recruiter and the frontman respectively in Squid Game in April 2022. Hwang confirmed that the characters of Ji-eun and the frontman would return for the second season during Netflix's Tudum, a global fan event in June 2023. Lee Jung-jae was confirmed to reprise his role alongside Lee Bang-gun, Gong-yoo, and Wai-han on June 29th. Netflix released more info on the new season's cast, which includes Kong, Hano Park Sang-gun, Mekan Yang Dong-gun, Park Yong,
Lin Wook, Wanjo Yuri Kong Isim Choisan,
Lee David, and Ro-jan. Prior to the season's release, the casting choice of Park Sang-gun as transgender ex-soldier Hyun-ju was controversial due to some wanting a trans person to authentically portray their experiences. Criticism fell on both the casting of a cisgender person for the role instead of a transgender person, as well as for casting a man in particular as opposed to a woman. Some argued in response to this criticism that South Korea is conservative with regards to LGBTQ rights, and that trying to find a transgender actress willing to put herself in the spotlight was not reasonable. People also opined that having a trans character in a South Korean series at all is an important step in representation. On December 18th, 2024, during press day for Squid Game 2, director and creator Dong-hyuk spoke to a group of journalists about why he wanted to include a trans character. This time around, the people who come to join the games in Squid Game are usually marginalized or neglected from society, and not just financially speaking, but people who would belong to marginalized groups. In season 1, the representative character for that was Ali, who was a foreigner working in Korea which is one of the most representative minority groups in Korea currently today. Unfortunately, in the Korean society, the gender minority is a group that is not as accepted widely within society. I wanted to create a character that would represent that acceptance of trans people. Has gotten better recently, but it's still not where it needs to be in Korea. When you are a gender minority, it is not as widely accepted yet, unfortunately, and you are still seen to be very much out of the norm. And so by creating a character like Yeonju through her choices, her actions, and the way she carries herself in the game, I hope that that could raise awareness of these issues that we face today, though Hwang wanted to cast a transgender actor for the role. It was difficult to find such an actor in Korea due to the above issues, and believed that Park's prior roles in The Glory and Queen of Tears made him capable of portraying the role. Jo Yuri, who portrayed Kim Jun, he is best known as a former member of the South Korean Japanese girl group, is *1. She first gained prominence after participating in Net's reality competition series, produced 48 in 2018, where she finished in 3rd place and debuted with his *1 on October 29th. 2018, following his *1's disbandment in April 2021, Jo embarked on a successful solo career, releasing her debut single album Glassy in October 2021, which garnered her several nominations for Rookie of the Year at major music awards on December 4th, 2024. Top was revealed as a cast member through the official Netflix YouTube account in the form of a Meet the Cast video. He would play the role of a former rapper Thanos fallen from grace due to a crypto scam. The character was created before casting Top receiving the role. After Hwang found his serious approach, Hwang explained that he wanted to cast someone who stopped working due to drugs. Top retiring from the K-pop industry and leaving Big Bang over a marijuana conviction. The casting of Top received controversy in South Korea. The actor's face blurred on the Korean show Live this morning. When airing a segment about the show, the casting led to some viewers to believe that Jung-jae, who portrayed Song Gi-hun and was close to Top, had gotten him the role, a claim that Lee denied. Netflix and Hwang received criticism for this casting for possibly setting a bad precedent. Top was absent for a time from promotional events, with the cast responding to speculation that he was removed from promotional events. Over the controversy, Hwang said that they planned to not have him featured from the beginning, wanting Top to be able to talk about his involvement at his own pace. He felt that he had a lot of guts for agreeing to do the performance, considering his history with drugs, and was surprised that he had still not been forgiven. He also believed that the reaction to his casting would not be reflected outside of Korea due to different legality and opinions on marijuana use in some countries. He also believed that his character may prove popular with younger viewers in Korea. In 2000, Song Yang-chong, who played the role of Jung-jae in the season, was arrested on charges dealing with child exploitation after being accused of having sexual relations in his car with a 16-year-old on 2 different occasions near a park in Goang and paying the minor for services. The incident further blew up because the teenager recognized him from his previous projects and led to Hwang facing legal proceedings. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison and 2 years of probation for violating the Juvenile Protection Act. However, since he had no prior record and showed remorse during his 36-day custody period, his sentence was later suspended. Hwang was permanently banned from coming on the major TV networks in South Korea, including KBS, EBS, and NBC, and worked in musical theater until his eventual comeback in films and series. Young-chong's prior legal issues received renewed attention after the seasons. Released earlier in 2024, Yang Gang-soo, who played the role of Oil Nam in Season 1, was found guilty of sexually assaulting a woman in 2017 and was sentenced to an 8-month suspended prison term, as well as being ordered to attend 40 hours of classes on sexual violence. He was accused of various cases of sexual misconduct in which he had inappropriately hugged, made lewd comments towards, laid in the same bed with, and kissed the victim across multiple incidents. Although he was charged in 2017, He was not indicted until 2022. His conviction led to there being no flashback scenes featuring his character in the second season filming. Principal photography for the second season was scheduled to start in July 2023 and was expected to last for at least 10 months. On July 10th, staff members of the production faced a controversy involving allegations of mistreatment towards citizens during filming at Incheon Airport. Seoul, the production company, issued an official apology on the matter. Filming was reportedly underway in August 2023. It took place at a film studio in Tun. Filming wrapped in July 2024 and was filmed back-to-back along with the third upcoming season. Composer Jung-jae returned to score the second season, with the soundtrack album being released on December 27, 2024 through Netflix Music. Jung confirmed his involvement in 2023, telling the BBC the second season would retain some elements from the score to the first season, but have a more bizarre and unique sound. The first episode features the Arthness and Dorma from Jalpini's Randit, sung by Paul Potts, and Time to Say Goodbye by Sarah Brightman and Andrea Belli. The third episode features a cover of Fly Me to the Moon, performed by Ji-eun, a song which was also featured in the first season marketing. During Netflix Event Week in September 2024, a poster and a teaser for the season were released between October and December. Netflix promoted the series in fan conventions around the world, in which invited fans took part in simulated games from the series. The events took place in Lucca, Italy; Paris, France; Amsterdam, the Netherlands; Seoul, South Korea; Los Angeles, United States; Sydney, Australia; Sao Paulo, Brazil; Warsaw, Poland; London, United Kingdom; and Jakarta, Indonesia. Famous streamer Llanos organized his own version of Squid Game with KFC in Madrid, Spain. Filipino journalist MJ Marori attended the 3-day event for the season and also interviewed Lee Jung-jae McDonald's. Australia ran a limited-time Squid Game meals promotion, which came bundled with a Delona cookie for customers to extract, a shape from mirroring the first season. One form of the cookie included the shape of the company's signature golden arches, where, if extracted successfully, customers could scan to enter a competition to win $100 alongside replicas of contestants' tracksuits from the series. Squid 2 movie review in a world where House of the Dragon doesn't exist and everything is a remake, a reboot, or a spin-off featuring irrelevant characters. One show has come along to rescue us all from the downtrodden acceptance of complete incompetence in Hollywood. The days of accepting Hallmark levels of production as tentpole flicks have been put on notice. Squid Game has come to play again, and they've come to win. 2024 has ended, and 2025 is chock full of even more of the same unoriginal ideas and a severe lack of originality. Looking at you, Legally Blonde 3, will it ever end? And if so, when it hasn't been all bad, I'm just a tad dramatic, or at least that's what all my friends say. We did get House of the Dragon Season 2, Cobra Kai Season 6, Parts 1 and 2, Ha-joon Part 2. And The Offer, which ironically enough are all based on someone else's idea. The first season of Squid Game was a cultural phenomenon. Hands down, everyone was praising it. You couldn't be on the internet and not hear about it. Conventions and honey trap Instagram accounts were filled with Squid Game. Cosplayers, as well as people dressing up as players and workers for Halloween. It was so popular that Netflix created 2 of their own Squid Game shows. One is a reality-style version of Squid Game, which I can't stand, and the other is a behind-scenes look at it. They weren't the first to cash in on the hype, though. Mr. Beast beaten to the punch. I mean, he used the show as another opportunity to spread philanthropy by way of playing Squid Game-styled games. The success of the first season of Squid Game was a juggernaut, and everyone wanted their own green tracksuit or pink uniform, so they too could play. The first thing you should know about Squid Game Season 2 is that these 7 episodes are only the first half of the season. Sure, Netflix considers these 7 episodes an entire season, but it's just not when the next set of episodes is released. Netflix will call it Season 3, but it's really Season 2. Part 2 Squid Game. Season 2 might only be the first half that also ends on a cliffhanger. But oh my, I feel like we're all in for a very, very nice treat. At the end of this, player 456S Ji-eun, played by Jung-jae, is back and bawling. out of control. It's been 2 years since player 456 won the games. He's now the owner of the Pink Motel with nobody except him most of the $456 billion he won, and his newly acquired artillery stay his new hopes and dreams are to abolish the Squid Game organization, and his first plan of action is to find the guy who recruited him. Eventually he does, but he still ends up back in the games this time, though he's here to stop them for good. With his experience winning a previous Squid Game, he plans to either talk the other players into quitting or eventually take matters into their own hands to destroy the Squid Game organization. Squid Game Season 2 starts a little slow, and it's totally fine. The first season of Game of Thrones was also a little slow. And look how that played out in the following seasons. The games and all the socializing that comes when 456 people are in the same room don't start as quickly in this season. And that's a good thing. In Season 1, we experience the pure awesomeness and vulgar display of power that is Squid Game by the end of the first episode. Red light, green light. It's not until episode 3 that the next Squid Game starts and we get our first look at the newest batch of players. This season is setting up for something big, and I'm so here for it. Did I really just say that outside the games? And running a small elite military group is Ha-joon, played by Ha-joon. Jung-jae and Song-Ji-eun player 456 have teamed up this season to destroy the Squid Game organization, and player 456 is funding the entire operation with his winnings. Jung-jae is a detective who infiltrated the games as a worker in Season 1. While undercover, he learned that his brother wasn't actually missing, but was once the previous winner of the games, who is also now the front man. Played by Byung-hun and KW are on the water searching the islands and are ready for action. Unfortunately, we won't see his arc play out until Season 3, Season 2, Part 2. Within Season 2, Part 1, we get a lot, but not the enjoyment of completion like in Season 1. Once the games get going, things get exciting, the pieces are being set, and we are getting a taste. Squid Game really knows how to build tension, anticipation, suspense, excitement, and finally payoff. I haven't been so sucked into a show and felt so much excitement while also experiencing intense moments of pure yes. Since watching Game of Thrones for the first time for serious Squid Game Season 2 brings it almost as much as Season 1. And it's only halfway there. Equality is an important theme throughout both seasons of Squid Game, and the cast and crew practice what they preach. The quality of acting, production design, storytelling, cinematography, editing, world building, and music are all equally impressive and equally in balance with each other. Everyone is firing on all cylinders with this production Squid Game. Season 2 is just as good as Season 1, but it's definitely not going to get the same zeitgeist-changing reaction Season 1 did yet. I think once Season 3, Season 2, Part 2 is released, we will get the equivalent reaction. The same explosiveness of Squid Game Season 1 will most likely come with the culmination of Season 3, which I also heard will be the series finale. Squid Game Season 2, like Season 1, isn't just action and suspense. There are also softer, more emotional scenes throughout. The balance through all of Squid Game is near perfect. That balance being you either win or die, extreme order, or extreme chaos. It might be luck, it might be skill, but winning is the only way to survive. Squid Game Season 2 is able to weave in and out of winning and dying with the intensity of a rocket launcher and the emotional sensitivity of your high school guidance counselor. I heard that after Season 3, Squid Game will be done. I really hope not. They could easily make this a 5-season series. Season 3 could be about player 456 taking down the Squid Game organization. But eventually failing, player 456 could have a change of heart and realize that nobody cares. The emotional transformation of accepting that everyone is trash and that having a heart of gold is pointless would be such a beautiful arc for player 456. Season 4 could be his Darth Vader arc, where he experiences the other side of Squid Game, taking out the trash. Then, in Season 5, his daughter becomes a player, and he has to grapple with what he has become and the responsibility of produced. I literally hear the music from Squid Game throughout the day at random times. It's awesome. I can't wait for season 3. Now, I'm so excited, especially after seeing the list of upcoming movies. In 2025, it's loaded with sequels like Den of Thieves 2, Captain African Hammer, Brave New World, Jurassic World Rebirth, Freakier Friday, and Now You See Me 3. Trust me when I say that I'm keeping this a short list, because there's a lot more I see this list, and all I can say is why so much energy and production for a bunch of crap. His second season of Squid Game premiered on Netflix in 2024. It's another exceptional season of this. Now iconic show song Ji-eun returns to the game after winning last time with a new resolution in mind to stop this deadly game. With the help of the police detectives this season came 3 years after the original, which is quite a long in-between time, but I'm happy to say that the series has lost none of its edge and or excitement this season, is almost as good as the original, and I cannot wait to see the next installment. After the shocking cliffhanger ending of the season, if done right, this will be a television trilogy for the Yang. Yes, this season was undoubtedly never going to be as fresh or as original as its predecessor, but the quality of its storytelling, character development, and technical aspects is so obviously strong that it ultimately managed to stand on its own and be comparable with the original, even trumping it in certain aspects. The first season had deeper themes, but this one still emphasizes the class struggles in Korea that are resonant the world over, which makes this show so universally appealing. The series isn't subtle in its exploration of the human psyche, but it felt very truthful. In his sad depiction of greed and capitalism, Runamuk, there is a new rule this time around, and that is the vote. After each game, the participants get to vote on whether or not to continue the games or stop them, and walk away with the prize accumulated by that point. But shared equally among all this was an ingenious idea that led to not only intense voting sequences, but also a lot of drama between the participants as they split into two very different groups. The fact that the series actually managed to give a proper excuse to those who wanted to continue the games is a testament to its strong storytelling. My favorite episodes were those that consisted of more dialogue and complex character dynamics than the games themselves, which are once again phenomenal. The first one is a classic, repeated from the previous season, while the second one is this interesting mix of mini games that are too Korea specific, but still a lot of fun. The highlight is clearly the last game called Mingle, which brought out the worst in participants in the most brutal and dark ways possible. But ultimately, this season wasn't as horrifying as the last one until the finale that was twisty and unexpected in the best ways possible. Not that many important characters die in this season, but we still have another one to go, which will undeniably lead to many more painful deaths. I did find those first couple of episodes somewhat pedestrian, as the show is at its least interesting when operating as a detective police procedural, but the 5th episode was a stellar showcase of superb character development, while the finale was such a delightful shooter thriller that reminded me of video game levels where you have to shoot your way to the top of the building. It was a whole lot of fun with very high stakes, but also a sense of realism retained throughout. Ji-eun continues to be a fantastic protagonist, and our guiding sense of morality and fight for justice. He is a different man here in a sense that he knows the games and stakes, so he sets out to help others, but he is still just as smart and as capable as he was before. I loved his character. Another standout is Lee. This is a trans character who was ridiculously attacked by some unreasonable people online for being played by a straight actor. But he did an excellent job in this role, and the show is actually very positive in its depiction of transgender people. She is, after all, one of the biggest heroes of this entire season. And I appreciated how the series tackled her transition and her shy yet dignified interactions with the other participants in a nuanced way. My favorite characters are the mother and son playing the games together. This season is all about the dangers of gambling and how it's a rarely discussed but heartbreaking issue that many face. It's particularly well explored through this mother-son duo. I love this older woman who is both gentle and feisty. She's funny, but just so wonderful as she clearly cares for her son and her entire team. The one character who turns out to be a traitor is also fantastic and a very eerie psychopathic villain. I also really liked Thanos as this over-the-top buffoonish villain of sorts, and the series is very contemporary in his characterization and the depiction of online gambling and the crypto market. The protagonist's friend is also memorable, while the other characters are much less important. Other information about this film, like many fans of early 2000s Asian cinema, I fell in love with the dystopian murder game film Battle Royale, which is most likely why I like Squid Game so much, despite being all but banned in the United States for nearly a decade because of Colleen, supposedly. I managed to snag a shoddy bootleg market DVD on eBay in a way the movie's illicit status only added to its mythology, making it feel even more iconic and underground. When I later heard that a sequel was in the works, I was ecstatic until I actually watched it. Like many film-efficient AOS, I quickly realized that Battle Royale 2 Requiem was an absolute disaster. It replaced the original sharp social commentary on youth exploitation with a strange, prone 9/11 anti-American agenda that completely missed the point of the first film, watching the characters march off to Afghanistan at the end as if it were some utopia was baffling. It's no wonder this sequel is so universally loathed that said I might need to revisit both films here someday and give them proper reviews. Now you're probably wondering, hey, isn't this a review of Squid Game 2? Yes, it is, but I had to lay all that out to explain my initial concern. Squid Game was a phenomenon much like Battle Royale. It was a cultural lightning rod that took the world by storm with little initial promotion from Netflix. Despite this, it became an instant hit offering, scathing satire on wealth inequality at a time when tech billionaires have seemingly taken over the world, making the robber barons of old blush in comparison. So naturally, I wondered how they could possibly top it. Would Squid Game Season 2 up the ante? Would it live up to the same cultural benchmark as its predecessor? It's a complicated answer, a bit of yes and a bit of no, but in my opinion, that's actually a good thing. In the opening moments of Squid Game 2, viewers catch up with the lives of two survivors from the 33rd Squid Game, now 2 years removed from the events that turned their worlds upside down. Hwang, played by Ha-joon, the determined policeman who infiltrated the games in search of his missing brother, only to discover that his brother was running them, and Song-gyun, played by Lee. Jung-jae, the sole winner of the games, now bent on revenge, Ji-eun has used a significant portion of his prize money to hire his former debt collectors and their crew to track down the elusive recruiter responsible for pulling countless players into the deadly competition. Meanwhile, Jun-ho, left for dead after being shot and falling into the sea, has enlisted the very captain who rescued his body to search for the island where it all unfolded. Both men are consumed by their obsession with dismantling the sinister masterminds and the VIPs who sustain the horrifying games after a pretty harrowing ordeal. Ji-eun goes back into the games to be a hero. He has delusions of being the person that rallies everyone around himself to unanimously take all of the guards and the front man down. He envisions a role as a wise mentor that many will flock behind, but you know what happens? Practically the exact opposite. June is labeled as a fraud, a crazy person, or perhaps a man in league with the powers that be, those that even believe his story that he is a previous game winner. See him as problematic or an obstacle in their way of winning all of that money, because when faced with a task, such as food or a lottery ticket, or in this case a little bit of money and freedom, or the hope of that big payoff, far too many people stick with the games, betting against all odds that they are going to be the ones to win it all. The front man, intrigued by this volunteer reinsertion into the games, not only changes the games up, making Ji-eun look like even more of a fraud, as he tries to tell others that he knows the games, only to be met with different ones, but he himself jumps into the 0001 uniform and enters the games as well. Somehow, someway, Ji-eun decides to trust this new 01 who throws red flags out constantly, yet again, despite what happened the last time. Sure, Ji-eun has trained to be Korean Batman, but he still is the same person that got in trouble gambling all his money away in the past. He is too confident, misjudges his insight and skill, and misses the obvious, sensing his failure. Ji-eun eventually lets all of his morals collapse and willingly allows many people to be sacrificed as a way to attempt to take over the game's control center, which is clearly a huge desperation move when his original plan became hopeless. Did he give up on humanity? Hopefully season 3 goes into this. I actually appreciated this portrayal of Ji-eun because he's far from the picture-perfect, infallible hero archetype we often see in similar stories. Characters like Katniss from the Hunger Games, for example, can sometimes feel overly polished or it's too perfect, which makes them less interesting. Hun, on the other hand, is deeply flawed. He makes an enormous series of mistakes throughout the story, and then at a certain point, seemingly throws caution to the wind and starts using everyone around him as pawns in his singular mission to take the games down. It's a bold and layered approach to character. Writing that I think a lot of viewers misunderstood or overlooked entirely, speaking of that. While it seems like this show has been generally liked, I can see that there is a strand of reviewers that seem to only like the first season for how violent it was and lost their minds when faced with a slower, more dramatic, character-driven turn here. It takes nearly 2 full episodes for Ji-eun to even set foot on the mysterious island where the games are held. And for most people, that was far too much, in my opinion. If the show had simply rehashed the same tropes from season 1, it would have ended up as a boring retread. Similarly, if it had gone the route of making the games bigger, badder, and more deadly, it would have risked glorifying the violence, which goes completely against the core message of the series. Instead, by letting the games themselves take a backseat to the backstory, the inner workings of the island, and the human drama unfolding around them, Squid Game 2 feels like it's building towards something much bigger. This deliberate shift in focus seems to be setting up an enormous payoff for Season 3 surviving. The Squid Game should have set Song Jeon-leonin for life. 45.6 billion won is an inordinate amount of money, substantial enough to pay off his debts, help out the families of his fallen comrades, and carve out a comfortable existence for himself. Although Ji-eun does all of the above, a simmering discontent plagues him years after his PC win, leaving him stewing in rage-fueled guilt that will forever haunt his heart. In Squid Game Season 2, Ji-eun has his sights set on vengeance and is armed with the conviction that this barbaric sport should come to an end. And he is just getting started. Before we plunge back into this bleak stakes heavy world, it is crucial to note that series director Dong-hyuk wrote Seasons 2 and 3 back-to-back, and that the 2 stories form halves of a whole, although the first season ends on a cliffhanger. It is a clear indicator of a fresh chapter where the rebirth of an enraged, red-headed Ji-eun lends to the anticipation for what's to come. What does occur next is nothing short of dazzling. Season 2 goes all in on its bet, taking a high-risk, high-reward strategy to map a return to the titular games. The highs are nail-bitingly tense, often euphoric, and a retreating of the familiar premise does not feel stale at most points that said this is a deliberately disjointed tale meant to ramp up an itch for the next season. The gamble is not yet over, and the results of this zero-sum game leave too many unresolved strands in stasis. What Season 2 does best, apart from turning the risk and thrill meter to a 100, is cement Ji-eun interiority as a changed man. There are rare glimpses of the old Ji-eun, thanks to conversations with childhood friend Young-bi Lee Seo-han. But his perennial instinct is to remain guarded and protect the rest of the players who remain oblivious to the reality of the games, although Ji-eun has been kind. Even during his flippant, desperate years spent gambling, this mellow sentiment has now been sharpened by survivor's guilt and the on-rack desire to dismantle the games from within. We root for him to succeed more than ever as this iteration of Squid Game contestants feels more ruthless, more willing to kill to secure a life without debt. However, a moral void is always counteracted with a firm compass, as some players believe that their humanity is worth holding on to, even during a bloodbath. This is where its Squid Game makes its riskiest gamble, a necessary narrative leap that is meant to disrupt the established framework of our expectations. A sense of dissatisfaction is key to making this work, as we have already made up our minds about how we perceive the players. Situated front and center, every death matters, as does every win, and even the most expected betrayals hit hard on a playground that is designed to embolden liars, pretenders, and the worst instincts in humanity in the previous season. Ji-eun and his friends were just a few among many unremarkable fodder for the capitalist machine, but this time around they are a real threat to the foundation of the game's C. Completely independent of recruiter Gonggu return to keep us on our toes, and their respective arcs are expectedly significant. Yet one of them feels mired in disappointment. We get long, deep glimpses into personal motivation stories rooted in pain and grief and an uncomfortable reckoning that broken social systems beget deeply broken people. What makes a difference is perception and choice, the paths chosen to move forward, but this does not guarantee fairness, as hyper-capitalist economies don't incentivize or reward selflessness or compassion. These personal revelations, both in the real world and the game arena, are backed by remarkable performances, and all of the fresh faces manage to make a strong impression amid the escalating chaos. Without giving anything away, I must highlight why Hwang's astounding ability to imbue the front man with such intricate layers, which paints a complex portrait of a man willing to twist every flaw and vulnerability in his favor also. As expected, Jung-jae elevates Ji-eun to the next tier in this iteration, swinging between rage and grit while never letting go of his consideration for others. This is a conflicted man with nothing to lose, as he has already given up on his dreams of perceived normalcy and happiness, while Squid Game returns with a grander meteor battle plan. The crack seeping into its sprawling narrative might be very, very easy to overlook in the face of the glittery spectacle of adrenaline-pumping death games and bodies dropping like flies. Whether these flaws morph into convincing red herrings or necessary heel turns can only be answered by the upcoming final season, which needs to fulfill the tall order of pulling off this bet without risk of ruin more. Detail created by writer-director Dong-hyuk, the Emmy-winning Squid Game. Netflix's most watched series of all time has returned for a second season. Season 1 of the South Korean survival thriller followed Song Jung-jae, a divorced father and gambling addict who joins the Squid Game in hopes of earning enough prize money to pay off his debts and support his family. Ji-eun and 455 other players attempted to pull themselves out of poverty by competing against one another in nostalgic childhood games like red light, green light, marbles, and tug-of-war. However, they quickly discovered elimination meant total annihilation. Despite persevering as the winning contestant and taking home $45.6 billion, Ji-eun remains haunted by the experience, unable to move forward and enjoy his immense wealth. Ji-eun is determined to dismantle the game from the inside, no matter the cost. Deeply disturbing, ultra-violent, and offering new insight, Squid Game Season 2 is a worthy follow-up, expanding on the ominous themes of its predecessor 3. Years after winning, Ji-eun has done little to transform his circumstances. Paranoid and emotionally disturbed, he is a shell of his former self, living in almost complete isolation instead of following his daughter to America. Ji-eun's sole focus is uncovering a way to force himself back into the game and put a stop to it, though his investigation has produced only dead ends. His fortunes change when he crosses paths with Ha-joon, a police officer who previously infiltrated the game as a guard, hoping to find his missing brother. Ha-joon upon learning that In-ho was working as the game's front man. Jun-yo was cruelly betrayed by his brother and later ostracized at work due to his ravings about what he witnessed after teaming up together. Ji-eun and Jun-ho find themselves being pulled back into the world they so narrowly escaped in an effort to stop the inhumanity they witnessed. The structure, costuming, setting, and even the haunting cover of Fly Me to the Moon remain the same in Season 2. Still, it mostly thwarts repetitiveness by finding new angles to examine what seemingly ails modern-day Korea capitalist exploitation, the erosion of morality and class inequities, the show's signature brutal violence. Blood, guts, and gore are still hyper-presentes, but the terror among the players, including Ji-eun, who has experienced it all before, remains palpable. Moreover, a brand new cast of contenders, including a mother-son duo Wee Dong-gun and Kong Eh-him, a YouTube star, Am Se-won, and a psychotic rapper Choi San, add new dimensions because this crop of competitors skews much younger and includes more women. The narrative showcases how an unplanned pregnancy and timely problems such as unstable currencies like crypto and ill-informed influencers can upend the lives of young people before they are ever able to gain footing in society. One of the most interesting aspects of Season 2 is that it moves beyond the players. The audience follows the journey of Pink Soldier No Yu Park Yong while the participants are motivated by the promise of billions of dollars. The soldiers who appear unconcerned with the game's vicious nature have chosen to work for the front man for other reasons, just as the series addresses human behavior under extreme duress and life-and-death situations. Season 2 also illustrates how easily people can inflict pain and violence on others when they are emboldened by a sliver of power, in addition to offering audiences different vantage points into the tournament. Season 2 of Squid Game also illustrates how quickly the elite can shift and raise the bar to maintain their status and keep others on hamster wheels of suffering, though Ji-eun returns with a plan and a roadmap backed by unlimited funds. He learns harshly and quickly that the games and a money-worshipping culture. Squid Game Season 2 isn't so much dystopian as it mirrors an ever-compounding global crisis. This story illuminates how differing priorities and a lack of self-awareness can cause major societal fractures, fostering groupthink and barbarism. Boasting several mind-blowing twists, these 7 episodes advance the story to what will undoubtedly be an electric conclusion when Season 3 debuts, 2025. Additionally, the show is a reminder that it is not radical to protest. Injustice, after all, dissent might be the only thing to save us. I'll admit that I was extremely nervous when it was announced that Netflix would release 2 more seasons of the hit series. After premiering on Netflix in September 2021, Squid Game took the world by storm. It quickly became one of the streaming giant's most watched shows, and it was all people could talk about. So, understandably, fans' expectations are set exceedingly high entering Season 2. As someone who considers Season 1 a masterpiece, I had concerns that expanding this universe could result in story fatigue and a decline in quality. However, as soon as the credits rolled, after watching Squid Game Season 2's first episode, my worries were completely put to rest. Most of Episode 1 takes place 3 years after June the Jung-jae won the games, though his desire to bring down the people behind the establishment is stronger than ever, and we still see moments of his kindness and morality shine through during the season. He's a changed person. Ji-eun is clearly experiencing survivor's guilt and trauma after what he witnessed as player 456, which has led him to become more resilient and unyielding in the face of diversity. Ha-joon is also dealing with trauma in a very different context after posing undercover as a pink soldier on the island and discovering at the end of Season 1 that his missing brother In-ho, Lee Byung-hun, is the front man of said evil operation. Many questions have remained unanswered for the last few years. Much like Ji-eun, Juno is determined to reveal the location of these games and put a stop to them once and for all, although viewers have an idea of what to expect once players arrive at the island. Writer and director Dong-hyuk brings a fresh wave of creativity to Season 2, which has a distinct dynamic from its predecessor and a much grittier tone. Unlike the first series, we get to experience more time with certain characters before they enter the games, which adds depth to their stories and sheds light on their motives. There's also a lot at stake, with 2 beloved characters from Season 1, Ji-eun and Jun-ho, returning to the show and being driven by the same objective, even when there's another season to follow and a concrete conclusion won't be reached at the end of Season 2. The narrative is predictable and captivating from start to finish, with many jaw-dropping twists and turns. Part of what makes Season 1 outstanding is its varied group of players, each with unique, unforgettable personalities. Viewers experience each contestant's journey throughout the games and grow a fondness for them, such as fan favorite Oi from Season 1. If you thought Season 2 might struggle to live up to its predecessor and falter in introducing larger-than-life memorable characters, you should put those worries behind you. There are many bold, confrontational, and unlikable personalities in Season 2, which only adds to the narrative's intensity. On the other hand, there are plenty of characters that you grow to love. Throughout the 7 episodes, particularly player 120, Yeonju Park Sunun, who is a series standout, like in Season 1. The cast's performances in Squid Game 2 are outstanding. Lee Jung-jae's portrayal of Ji-eun differs from the previous season when he was much more naive and agreeable. It's a breath of fresh air to observe a shift in the character's personality as he now holds a less refined demeanor. He's on a mission and refuses to let anybody stand in his way. As frontman Lee Byung-hun has considerably more screen time. He's a fascinating yet infuriating villain, and his character development this season pushes the boundaries just when you think he cannot become any more sadistic. And demented he does. But this season's biggest surprise is Gong-gu, who absolutely blew me away with his depiction of the recruit. Many of the actor's previous roles tend to be much more grounded. Nice guys here. He's an utter psycho in the best way, and his performance leaves a lasting impression. The return of Junho in Season 2 is a delight to see, given that he's my favorite character in the show. Though he's displayed in a more understated way during the season, he's an integral part of this series, and his presence carries a significant impact. For anyone concerned that Squid Game season May 2nd feel repetitive in terms of games, I want to assure you that you will not be disappointed. Not only do the activities exceed expectations, with thrilling action-packed sequences that will leave your heart racing, but they're brimming with suspense and implemented on a much grander scale. Unpredictable path in the pursuit of justice in season to keeps the audience on edge, and the outcomes of the games are even more shocking and nefarious. As a viewer, you feel completely engrossed in the spectacle that is being presented, and the tension never wanes throughout each episode. Every minute counts, and each subplot is effortlessly integrated into the storyline and has a purpose. And now, to answer the question every dedicated fan of the South Korean series will ask, does Squid Game Season 2 live up to expectations, and was the 3-year, 3-month, and 4-day wait worth it? I'm happy to report that the answer is an astounding yes, grander and more audacious than its predecessor Squid Game Season 2 surpasses every hope and expectation viewers could have had for the series. It's a masterclass in storytelling and character development while raising the bar for Season 3's epic finale. Extra information: when Korean series Squid Game came out in 2021. It went on to become the most watched show on Netflix soon enough. There was merchandise on sale, spin-offs, and simulations that invariably follow such success. The show was popular, probably because it was a reflection of the world we live in, where the poor and vulnerable are considered disposable. Trash, the creator of the brutal games in the show, makes death a spectator sport for the amusement of the rich, quite like war coverage on television. Writer-director Dong-hyuk was right in surmising that greed can turn people into animals, and so desensitized have we become to images of massacres on screen that people dying in large numbers is not even scary. It's entertaining. Social media flaunting of wealth and privilege seems to declare that a life without money is not worth living. The first season laid out the setting of a group of desperate participants being taken to an island to play deadly versions of traditional Korean children's games orchestrated by thrill-seeking sadists reminiscent of William Golding's survivalist classic Lord of the Flies, Japanese film Battle Royale, and Hollywood's Hunger Games. The show boasts of terrific production values that raises it miles above what it could have become. A jumped-up big boss in the first season, Song-hun Leong-jae, after losing his job and racking up gambling debts, is approached by a mysterious stranger promising him a bounty that will solve all his problems. All he has to do is play some games that require no particular skills. Hun is rendered unconscious and taken to a mysterious location with sterile walls and bunk beds right out of a sight nightmare. The 455 other wretched men and women hoping to rid themselves of debt are guarded by masked and armed guards in magenta costumes resembling PP kits that are still a visual memory of the Co-era. In the first game itself, the participants discover that elimination means death. The rules state that players can vote to leave any time they want, but a majority of them vote to stay on, despite the risks the masked man in black, the front man who runs the show, correct? Corley, that greed is the biggest motivator for money. People will kill or die. Hun miraculously wins the games and returns with a huge sum. But instead of enjoying his fortune in season 2, that takes place 2 years later. He gets obsessed with hunting down the people who organize the games and stop them. For good, realizing that he has been dehumanized by the games, he uses his money to trace the recruiter who lured people to participate in a scene early in the show. The recruiter offers a bunch of homeless a choice between bread and a lottery ticket. Most choose the ticket and lose, rather than let them eat the food they rejected. He stomps all over it. Police officer Ha-joon recovers from the attempted murder by his older brother in Byung-hun, the search for whom had taken him to the island in season 1, where he witnessed the diabolical games. It takes 2 episodes for Ji-eun and Jung-jae to plan their attack, which immediately goes wrong, having volunteered to participate in the games again. Ga-hun is trapped on the island with a rescue team misdirected by the sinister frontman and his evil crew. Season 2 is almost a rehash of the earlier season, with the same games and the same display of greed by participants who vote to stay on this time. They don't get detailed backstories, but over 7 episodes, the various connections between characters are established. The addition is Ji-eun's knowledge of the games, enabling him to save as many lives as he can, and the undercover presence of an antagonist after a point before the blood-spilling eliminations even take place. The participants reduce themselves to savagery to get a larger share of the promised billions. It is a microcosm of society outside, with the majority bullying a weaker minority and democracy being subverted by self-interest. Season 2 ends with a cliffhanger as a character says the game will not end unless the world changes. The world is not suddenly going to turn utopian, but season 2 is just a cynical manipulation of the show's fan base. Pink jumpsuits as a fashion statement rather than a genuine fleshing out of the plot. It was the stylish production design, candy-colored, set superior soundtrack and performances that made Squid Game such a sensation. But if season 3 just offers more of the same artistically choreographed carnage, there is disappointment in store already still. Jung-jae, the first Asian star to win an Emmy for his performance, drives Squid Games 2 as its moral core, representing the small but strong group of people who stand up for what is right. 2021's Squid Game became one of the biggest hits of the streaming TV era, unexpectedly launching its way to the title of Netflix's most watched show ever, on its way to Emmys for acting the Jung-jae and direction Dong-hyuk. Despite a bit of a cliffhanger in its final episode, the first season of Squid Game could have easily stood alone. But Netflix backed up trucks of money to writer-director Hwang, and he figured out how to expand the story for 2 more seasons. Although the way the 7-episode second chapter plays out, it's clear that chapters 2 and 3, which were shot simultaneously, are really one story despite the high body count. By the end of these 7 hours of inventive television, Squid Game 2 does feel like set up for a showdown in the 3rd and final season, even if it does end on a less satisfactory note than the landscape shifting first outing. Squid Game is likely to be another huge hit for Netflix, enough to carry them into an ambitious 2025 Squid Game 2, which is how it's credited on the open of each episode for what it's with opens, where the last season closed as winner. Lee chooses not to board the plane to the United States, returning to take down the game that takes advantage of those in need. He spends the next 3 years scouring the country for the salesman Gang-gu, the excellent star of Train to Busan, and Age of Shadows, the mysterious figure who recruits players for the game. Another survivor of season 1 also wants to find his way back to the island too, the police officer Hwang Ha-joon, who discovered at the end of last season that the game's head tough guy, a mysterious figure known as the front man. The incredible Lee Byung-hun was his brother. The first 2 episodes center both of these parallel endeavors to return to the place where childhood games become life or death dilemmas in order to take it down without spoiling anything. The previews give this away. Ji-eun is plunged back into the game in the 3rd episode, which allows the writers to introduce a new coterie of fellow players, a rich crew of interesting supporting characters to bounce off Ji-eun and the front man who gets a much bigger role this season in a way that I won't spoil, although likely will be by the time you read this. Most importantly, Hun's friend from Season 1, Jung-jae Lee Ko-hun, becomes a player alongside a mother and son duo named Jang-jae, the excellent Kong Isom, Park Yong-sik Dong-gun, a cocky rapper named Thanos Choi-san, and many more. Most controversially, a cisgender man named Park Sun-un was hired to play a transgender woman named Yeonju, leading to some opining that a trans performer should have been cast, an undeniably preferable option, but more difficult in career than other parts of the world. For the record, Park is good in a role that seems destined to be controversial based on casting alone. The new players are thrust into a version of the game that blissfully doesn't just repeat the original first. The involvement of a former winner totally changes the dynamic, making him an instant leader by virtue of knowing more about what comes next. More impactful is a change to the structure of the game, wherein the players vote after each round whether or not they want to stay or play another game. Continuing means more money for the survivors, but possible death, while the writers arguably spend a bit too long in the actual scenes of voting and campaigning to stay or go. It does insert a new theme, the greed and desperation of one half of the population, those willing to put everyone's life on the line for more money that basically keeps the other half prisoner. It also creates more divisions in the players by dividing them into, of course, given the childhood game aesthetic, X's and Oath, would you try as hard to help someone who you know will vote to leave if you want to stay, and vice versa. Squid Game is undeniably well made in terms of craft, sharply directed in all 7 episodes by the same creator, giving it a visual continuity that helps make it so bingeable. The art direction this year is consistently engaging, including some new games that once again turn childhood joys into adult nightmares. Some of it echoes last season thematically and visually, but when it's good, which is often, it's very good. The writing in the back half of the season struggles when it has to check in with characters outside of the Squid Game compound, but it hums in-game, introducing new ideas and bouncing these new personalities off each other. That latter part sidelines Jun a bit, but that feels like a choice to set him up as the true center of the final season, and it makes it feel like even more of an ensemble piece than Season 1. It also helps to have a larger role for Lee Young-hun, a phenomenal performer who gets to toy with Ji-eun this year in ways I didn't see coming. Squid Game is a tough act to repeat. I don't expect the sequel to have the same cultural impact as the first, which led to award spin-offs and copycats, and the fact it doesn't stand alone as much as Year 1 will likely add to a sense of disappointment, however. It almost feels like we should wait to judge Squid Game 2 until we see where these new characters and thematic developments lead us in Squid Game 3. After all, you can't know who's won a game until it's over, this film. Showrunner Hang Dong, starring MCK Woon. Park Yong-K-joy know of Episode 7. Original network Netflix original release December 26, 2024. Previous Season 3 listed episodes. So guys, this is the review of Squid Game 2 movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.